When the new Barclays Premier League season kicks off this weekend, there'll be plenty of changes. 3 promoted clubs, of course, a multitude of player transfers, and not to mention a host of new kit designs. However, there's one fundamental change that won't have been made in the way the single most important aspect of the game is officiated. And for this man at least, it's a change that is now overdue.
When you consider that managers, coaches, players work all week with the objective of getting the ball over the opponent's goal line, and for a decision to be denied when the ball actually does go over the line, then something has to be done about it. It is clear to me that the technology is there today and has to be introduced. After all, it was over 40 years ago America put a man on the moon. You can't tell me that the technology is not there to check whether the ball goes over the goal line or not.
Though no longer involved with the Gunners or the Premier League, David Dein remains a respected figure within English football. During his time as vice-chairman of Arsenal, he played a key role in recruiting Arsène Wenger and facilitating the success that the French manager has enjoyed. Given Dean's Arsenal associations, the World Show was somewhat surprised when we were invited to meet him at Fulham's Craven Cottage. However, it soon became clear that this stadium had links to the matter in hand.
David Healy, has it gone in? I don't think it has. Fulham fans are furious. Fulham players are furious. But the goal has not been given.
Dean now gives presentations to football administrators across the world and makes the case for the adoption of goal line technology, or GLT. He believes the Premier League should be allowed to take the lead in this.
The top level of the game, it goes round. That is the flagship of football. It goes to hundreds of millions of people. The Premier League sells its product to over 200 countries of the world. Now, that in itself is a showpiece. But what you have to do is make sure that the product that's being put out is as fair as possible as it can be.
We've already seen one example, but there have been plenty of others over the years. In 1998, Bolton eventually finished the season level on points with Everton, but the Trotters were relegated due to their inferior goal difference. It's not just about apparently legitimate goals not being given, of course. Awarding a goal incorrectly can drive players, managers and fans to despair. Last season, Newcastle were very much the authors of their own doom following a disastrous campaign, but Toon fans might still wonder if Michael Owen had scored against Chelsea, maybe it might just have sparked him into form. The law of the game covering scoring is remarkably simple, and in essence states when all of the ball crosses all of the goal line, between the uprights and under the crossbar, a goal is scored. How hard can it be to get this right? We asked the man in charge of English officials.
The reality is that you're asking an assistant referee during the course of the game, and he may be in line or should be in line with the second rearmost defender. They're standing well outside the, let's say, the penalty area. There's a direct shot on goal. It's the underside of the crossbar, bounces down over the line. You're asking him to make a judgment that he cannot make because he's not in a position to make it. You know, we're about fairness to the game, fairness to players, fairness to clubs, and therefore when a goal has either been given incorrectly or ruled out incorrectly, it is a major, I see it as a major catastrophe, because that's what the game's about. Our referees, all our professional referees, they are certainly in favour of goal line technology being introduced.
The world governing body takes guidance on proposed rule changes from the International Football Association Board, or IFAB. At their meeting in March 2008 in Gleneagles, Scotland, they voted to suspend the development of GLT. Brian Barwick was a member of the IFAB in 2008. One of the key arguments made against GLT then was that its introduction would lead to the use of technology in other officiating decisions.
I think it's an interesting position, the creepage, technological creepage as I call it, and that would be that, right, we start with goal lines, then we do offsides, then we do was the penalty incident inside the area. I think football's got to be really robust about this as it is at the moment, by not having goal line technology. If it ever got into a situation where it ultimately became an advocate for goal line technology, that's where it starts and that's where it stops.
Debate is part and parcel of the beautiful game, and so for some, goal line controversies are to an extent desirable. Take the most infamous goal line judgment of all, which decided the 1966 World Cup final at Wembley. 34 years later, England's match winner Geoff Hurst and West Germany's goalkeeper Hans Tilkowski were still arguing whether that ball did indeed cross the line.
Well, was it over the line or not? On the line? Over the
I have sympathy with the Germans because they didn't think it was a goal. So there's doubt about that particular decision. However we look at it, and I'm pretty sort of full-on English supporter, but you know, as a referee, we want the truth. In terms of controversy, you know, is it a penalty, not a penalty? Is it a foul, not a foul? Is it a red card, is it a yellow card? You know, these are judgments made by the referee, and I would suggest create sufficient talking points during the course of the game.
Before the decision to suspend support for GLT was made in 2008, two systems had emerged as viable contenders. One was developed by Adidas and Kairos Technologies. In this system, a microchip was embedded in the ball and measurement of its exact position was determined using magnetic fields. The system was used during the 2007 FIFA Club World Cup in Japan. The other contender was developed by Hawkeye Innovations, with initial testing taking place at Craven Cottage in 2007. This company's technology has already successfully been adopted in tennis officiating and is also used by cricket broadcasters. Hawkeye uses a series of high-speed cameras to determine the exact position of the ball. One of the critiques made of GLT is that the systems hadn't proved reliable enough. The man behind Hawkeye rejects those claims.
What we proposed we wanted to do as the next stage of the rollout of this system was to do a blind trial and put it into several Premier League grounds for at least 3 months and just use it not actually as part of the officiating, but just have it there so it could be tested in all different scenarios and get some more air miles onto the system so you could prove it was 100% reliable over a much larger test set of examples. But unfortunately, after the meeting in Gleneagles, all development was stopped because IFAB no longer allowed us to continue to develop the system.
Year on year, the pressure placed on managers seems to increase. Where do they stand in the GLT debate?
Why have technology? You know, what's the point in having it if you don't use it? So we're falling a bit behind the times again. Like, I mean, when you see other sports using it and we're not, then it's, you know, it gets a little worrying when there's so much at stake.
This technology has been seen in other sports and it's just accepted every time you use it, you know. You see that in tennis when the players challenge, was the ball in or out? And I believe that's the minimum we can do in our sport, is to make sure that the ball is over the line or not. It's so easy that you wonder, is there any argument against it?
Crystallised by that one moment.
Well, this is just unbelievable.
You don't need a replay.
No, it is miles over the line. Well, it's an embarrassing moment for Roy Carroll.
It's an embarrassing moment in a sense for English football.
Currently, the use of additional assistant referees is being piloted. GLT can't possibly be revisited by FIFA until that experiment concludes. Until then, advocates of goal line technology are prepared to keep up the fight.
In my experience in football, getting change takes a long time. It's not easy. But you have to be persistent. In the end, it's the motto of the turtle. You never get anywhere unless you stick your neck out.